Now trying to figure out what's up with the AFC West as the 2020 offseason reaches full bloom. Let's begin with the team from the West that made it back to the Super Bowl for the second straight year, but this time around did not win it. And the real question is, how much will that hang over the 2021 Chiefs? Will it be a motivating factor? Is it a humbling factor? Do they, go back to the lab? Do you question everything that you're doing? I think all the above is possible as well. It does motivate you, but it does get you to take a step back and say, if we got a little too complacent, are there things we need to address? How do we avoid the outcome that we just experienced 2.5 weeks ago?
No question. I mean, they certainly got to tinker with the formula a little bit. They got exposed with what we saw in the Super Bowl again. Now, I don't know if I want to say it exposed, but certainly – an element of versatility within their offense needs to be added. And we've talked about this a lot. First off, I think we were both shocked by the plan of attack the Kansas City Chiefs had against Tampa Bay. There was no plan B, and it seemed like they played a game that they totally expected to be played like it was in Week 12, which is going to be a lot of, defensive looks that were going to let Mahomes throw bombs down the field. Those are the plays they called in the Super Bowl. Make no sense, especially with a less than average offensive line. But just to start the conversation off, I do think, hey, listen, they're going to play through their offense. We know that. That's not going to change. They're going all in on offense. But they got to make a decision about how they want to play offense. They do. They can't continue just to go shotgun and we're going to let Mahomes float around and make unbelievable plays. Listen, they almost lost the Super Bowl before this because it was a little like that. I mean, it was 20-10 with 6 minutes left. Now, they lost this one in a bad fashion, and I do think that's a little bit because there's got to be another element that they bring. And whether that's we want to talk or strengthen our offensive line and be maybe a little more balanced and then maybe use the play-action pass from underneath center to let Mahomes throw deep passes or something like that. Or the other avenue I would say, Mike, is they got to get a route runner on their team. That would be the other thing I would say. They need a Julian Edelman type. Okay, there goes McCole Hardman. There goes, Tyreek Hill. They need a guy that can go underneath and work people to death, linebackers, safeties.
Isn't that Kelsey, though?
It is Kelsey, but you need more. You need more than just one guy to do that, especially if your team is going to be based around the offense, and that's going to be all about that pressure. Because if they take Kelsey away, okay, you're going to be able to play certain defenses and teams and schemes. They're going to go, okay, we got enough players here to kind of play zone. Our linebacker's pretty good, like Tampa Bay, and we'll make life hard on you. But if they have another guy underneath that element, along with more offensive plays like that, I just think that, they got to make a decision on how they want to approach the offensive side of the ball. That would be one of the first things I would say with Kansas City.
Well, and we've seen Andy Reid as a head coach in the NFL long enough to know that the run game is not going to be used excessively by him.
Right.
You throw in the fact that you've got one of the best quarterbacks in the history of the game, it's tempting to let him go do his thing. But we've seen the effort to try to bump up the running game. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and right out of the gates last year, week 1 against the Texans, Thursday Night Football on NBC, he had over 100 rushing yards. They just don't stick with it. They wanted Adrian Peterson after he was cut by Washington. Peterson wanted to sign right away for week 1. The Chiefs wanted to wait until after that Thursday game, so Peterson said no to the Chiefs. It seems like they're trying. Le'Veon Bell, even though he's more of a dual threat guy, they're trying to beef up the running game. They just don't commit to it. And, this reminds me of what happened with the Steelers and the explanations that were provided by people like Jerome Bettis. He was speaking to Ed Bouchette of The Athletic during the season, and he said, look, the commitment to the run isn't something that just pops up out of the blue.
Right.
It's baked into the team from training camp onward.
No doubt.
You don't just all of a sudden say, we're going to run the ball more. It's an attitude of the offensive lineman. Think about it. It's two very different jobs, pass blocking and run blocking.
It is.
It's two mentalities. It's attack versus defend. When you're pass blocking, you're keeping the attackers from getting to the quarterback. When you're run blocking, you're trying to put guys on their ass. It's two different mindsets. They have to decide early on what they're going to be. And once you make that choice in July and August, it's impossible to change it.
No, exactly right. And first off, I'll piggyback off of what you said. You're right. Andy Reid, I don't think it's in his DNA to be balanced and do that. I don't think that's really, realistic to think at this point. I don't think he's going to change. At least I don't expect him to. But But it is. Jerome Bettis is exactly right. We said that about Pittsburgh at the end of the year, too. Like, you can't just go, okay, now we're going to run the football. That's not going to work. There's no way. Now, I think that within the Clyde Edwards-Helaire thing, and this is where, okay, we got a running back like that. You got Travis Kelce, as you mentioned. To me, the element they need to get in, they need to go watch Sean Payton and how they get the ball to Alvin Kamara out of the backfield in the pass game. Again, that will add to that short passing game. All the ways Brady, and James White and Deion Lewis used to carve everybody up in the short passing game that way too. There has to be that part of their offense that has to grow and expand in a big-time way, because you can't just think you're going to just keep dialing up, hey, we're going to throw the ball down the field and bombs away and do that against the elite teams in football every week in the playoffs. And we've seen, too, just to add to that fact, as awesome as Mahomes is, in playoff football, he hasn't thrown a bunch of 300-yard games and things like that. And I think that's, of course, because you're playing defenses hey, we're smart, we're in the playoffs, we know how you play, and they can take away so many of those elements of that deep passing game. And that's, to me, where, one of the first things they got to figure out, like I said, a guy that can really work underneath with Kelce, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and then you got Hardman and Tyreek Hill on the outside to scare people to death down the field.
Put the graphic back up, please, of the receiving leaders. It is too skewed toward Kelce and Hill.
Yes.
We got to see more production
Right.
out of the back end.
Yes.
Whether it's Hardman, if Sammy Watkins stays, and who knows at this point, I think it's up in the air, but I don't know that there's going to be a big contract out there for him with another team. Demarcus Robinson, whoever else it is, Byron Pringle's a guy that flashes from time to time, but it can't just be Kelce and Hill. It can't be. Because if one of those guys gets hurt, you're screwed.
Right. And if, like we saw in the Super Bowl, where you play certain defenses, Tyreek Hill becomes like a factor in the football game. And then it just becomes, I hope Kelce can get open all game long against Devin White and Levante David and do that. And I think it's just too much to ask there. It really is. You're right. There's got to be more spread wealth, and that's, again, I think you look at a lot of the really great offenses through time, and I just right away go to Peyton Manning and the Colts and Brady. They made you think about more than two guys in their attack. Now, they might not have had all household names, but, you're taking away Edelman and Gronk. Okay, well, we got Amendola and James White. You're not going to just get off the hook. We're not going to be like, you took away Edelman and Gronk. We're screwed. The game's over. No, they had a part of their offense to go, okay, here goes plan B and plan C. Unlock these guys, and we're going to run these plays for them. That, to me, is one of the biggest elements that missing from their offense. And I certainly, would like to see grown, because they are going to play through their offense. We know that.
You make a great point there, and I'm looking at the stats now from the greatest show-offs on turf in 1999. I mean, you had Marshall Faulk, Isaac Bruce, Torrey Holt,
right,
Oz
Azir Hakim, right.
There was just, and you need more than two.
Yes.
Bottom line,
right.
And with a quarterback like Patrick Mahomes, it shouldn't be that hard to cultivate more than two, and maybe he does lean a little bit too much, and maybe the play callers are leaning a little too much toward getting the ball to Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, but they do need to diversify, and they do need to find a way to run the ball more effectively. Maybe that needs to be the priority. They perfected the passing game.
Yeah.
Go into training camp with this renewed attitude of we're gonna run block, and we're gonna go hard, and we're gonna commit to running the ball, and maybe we don't need to average 36 points per game. Maybe we can be as effective with fewer points, but holding the ball a little bit longer, keeping the other offense off the field, because so many teams now are trying to outscore the Kansas City Chiefs. Hey, their formula has delivered 2 straight Super Bowl appearances.
That's right.
But I think they'd prefer 2 straight Super Bowl wins. The question is, what do they have to do to regroup and get over the hump the next time that they're in a Super Bowl, which could be as soon as this year? And I think it's fair to say you've got to do more offensively, and if you can run the ball more, that would be great. And also, they need to use some of that cap space to have better backups. You can't have your 2 top tackles go down and have guys who step in who aren't good enough. You need veterans, and this may be the year to do it. If veterans are available, if they get cut by their teams or they don't get signed up in free agency, you do a one-year deal with some of these better players who come in and provide that support in the event that there are injuries again down the stretch.
I think that would be, if you ask me, number two thing. It would be what you just said there. I think you're spot on. It would be, okay, offensive line's got to improve a little bit. And even despite the injuries, listen, I know Mitchell Schwartz back. He's one of the best right tackles in football. Fisher at left tackle, really damn good. Those middle three, though, I mean, even when healthy, it's not a special group. You know, Duvernay Tardif, maybe he comes back, hopefully. That'll certainly help them. But I do think if you're going to play the style of football, either one we're talking about, we're going to run the ball more like you're talking about, or we're going to grow the passing offense and be more effective that way, then that certainly has to be looked at about that interior three. I mean, they got dominated up there so much throughout the year, and we just kind of go, not a big deal, because 15 is magical. And there's just so many games during the year, like we talked about, Mike, where we would be here on a Tuesday and a Wednesday, and you'd go, you watch the film, what do you think? And I'd go, I just can't believe how much pressure Mahomes was under. Watching the game on Sunday, I didn't really realize it because he always makes a play and throws a 15-yard laser, and we just move on. But constantly under duress, and that has to change too if you want to play that style of football that they're playing.
Yeah, there's a temptation to just rely on Patrick Mahomes to save your butt every week, because he has, in a relatively short period of time, a long resume of saving the Chiefs' butts by finding ways to make things happen, to the point where that becomes your crutch. That becomes your play in Madden that you always use, that always works. And in real world NFL, it's just let Patrick Mahomes figure something out, and that works until it doesn't, and it didn't on Super Bowl Sunday against the Buccaneers.
Right.
And you need a little bit more than you know that Mahomes, when you rely on him to get it done, is going to get it done. That just can't be the plan week in and week out, drive in and drive out. You need to have more than that. It can't be Mahomes run around until Kelsey or he'll get open, and if all else fails, run the ball to daylight.
Right.
There's got to be more than that.
Yeah, they got to help him. Right. I mean, he's as gifted as we've ever seen, right? I mean, there's no doubt about that. He's got a chance to be the greatest player I've ever seen in my life at the quarterback. He really is. But he's not going to just overcome the great defenses in football by himself all the time. That is not possible. It really isn't. So that has to be talked about. And then, hey, you want to hit their defense real quick? I mean, just as we get into this, because I know we're going to talk about the Raiders too. The defense, and here's free agents. I would be shocked if Sammy Watkins is back unless he takes a really, really team-friendly deal. DeMarcus Robinson, I don't know where that goes either. I don't think he really fits the mold. He's not an underneath route runner, anything like that, so I don't know where that goes. But, you see Bashaud Breeland, free agent. Hey, he's a pretty good player. I'm not saying he's a shutdown island corner, but he is a good player. Other than that, Sorensen's done a lot of good jobs for them. I'll be interested to see what they offer and try to get them back. They're key parts. But I think the rest of those guys on that list, I don't think that Kansas City's going to bend over backwards trying to get deals done with, the majority of these guys we see here on this graphic. They got to improve their secondary a little bit. Certainly at the corner position, they could probably maybe help out a little bit. But, man, they're an offensive football team. Spags does a great job of what he has, and he covers up some of the deficiencies he has on the defensive side of the ball with his great coaching, I think.
And these elite teams, this is a great opportunity to go out and buy veterans who will be available as they're cut by other teams and as they don't get big deals elsewhere. That's when, as things settle, the great teams that can offer a chance at a Super Bowl championship, that's the difference. That's the factor that gets some of these guys to come in on one-year deals, and you put together a little mini super team to try to get back to the Super Bowl for a third straight time.
Pass rusher too, Mike. I'll say that too. That's probably
absolutely, absolutely.
No doubt.
And we saw the value of having two guys who can get around the edge in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and what they were able to do with Shaq Barrett and JPP. Right. They got Frank Clark. They've got Chris Jones disrupting up the middle. Get a guy on the other edge, and that defense becomes a lot better.
No doubt.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.